Hey everyone, how's it going? This is me speaking, Mission Patriot. It has nothing to do with any groups that I have been working with. This is my own personal opinion on the matter at hand. This, of course, is about the Cliven Bundy ranch standoff. Okay, so from my understanding, from what I've heard, it what basically happened was environmentalists sued the government for not protecting a tortoise that is rare to the region, which I completely understand. I feel like we should give room for nature to have its own room to breathe, as well as standing up for rights of citizens. The conflict never would have happened if it was not for that. Now, understandably, the government felt it had the power and the rights to come out and seize the land, but here's the problem. They went too far. They should not have sent out armed troops to forcibly remove Cliven Bundy. The other ranchers, of course, in the area, they had agreed to vacate to another area, and they were paid to do so. Cliven Bundy, as far as I know, was offered money to move and vacate as well. But the problem was is that his family hadn't paid debts that they, for whatever reason, they had, owed. So now what I like I said, what I don't understand is why the government felt the need to go in and do this. They had every reason to not do that. Why would you go in and forcibly remove an old rancher, an old family that may or may not have one or two guns in it, but never would have fired? Obviously, judging by what has happened, they didn't fire in the first place. Hell, they had militia behind them, and they didn't fire. Which I'll get about later, alright? The government had every reason to not go in on them. They did not need to. Or Cliven Bundy, if they had fired on the approaching members of the government to issue whatever it was they needed to issue, then Cliven Bundy would have been marked as criminals. And everybody would probably been against them at that point. So this could have came down to court, pretty much. It's all that needed to happen. Bundy could have been summoned by the court, and it would have been resolved there. And then they could be labeled as criminals and then taken in, but not forcibly. Not with practically a SWAT team knocking at their door. Now, let me get to why the militia did what they did. And people, you can trust me. There's a Facebook page that you could go to for the information, and the Bundys will keep you updated. They like the support, and they're willing to provide information as needed. All these people that are spreading lies about biological attacks or missile strikes or the army flooding in and firing upon civilians is completely and utterly ridiculous. You people are the reason why. Okay, moving on. But none of that's happening. Understand that, or believe me, there would have been a hell to pay. But the militia showed up because they're not going to allow another Ruby Ridge. They're not going to let another 57-year-old cancer patient get thrown to the ground viciously by government anymore. They're not going to allow it. That's plain and simple. That is all that was about. They do not want a battle to escalate. But they were there to protect civilians if need be, because there was no reason at all for the BLM to show up fully armed to the teeth with guns and SWAT gear. It doesn't matter what Harry Reid says. These people could have simply taken to court and it would have been handled there. This just goes to show you how cocky the government in some areas seems to be when it comes to forcibly taking things from people. This is of great concern, folks. This could happen to you. This could happen to somebody down the road. This could happen to anybody that you know. And the fact is, anybody out there is not supporting militia in this. The fact is, if they do not show up to this, if they did not show up to support Cliven Bundy, and we just let the BLM walk all over their ranch, killing their cattle, throwing Clive and his wife face first into the dirt, seizing their land like this, they would feel no reason to not do it again. They would just as soon as they did it to Cliven Bundy as they would to your family, your wife, your son, your daughter. And understand, this isn't really about whether or not Cliven Bundy was wrong or right. The fact is they can't just come marching in and deny us our rights. They should have summoned him to a court proceeding and moved from there. That's why militia were out there, and that's why everybody's so mad about the First Amendment being taped off, because the entire country is what constitutes our ability to use, or our territory to use, our amendments, our free speech. So that's really what this is about. If any of this is wrong, if what we're doing is wrong, anybody can stand up and explain why, but I find no good reason. We're not going to bar you from explaining why we're wrong. We might say, no, you're wrong, and we'll try to explain that. But here's the thing. If you examine how many people have showed up to this, these are not ignorant people, okay? They have researched our history. They have dedicated some part of their lives to understanding how it is we have freedoms and we have our rights, what they mean, and how it is that they can be taken away. That's why they showed up. It's not because they plan an attack on the government, no. Like I said, they will not allow another Ruby Ridge or another Waco to happen in this country again. That is the reasoning. Those were events that a lot of people believe the government acted out too harshly, and here they are again doing it just like they did before. Only this time they didn't get the chance to kill innocent people. They didn't get the chance to throw down a 57-year-old cancer patient because the militia were there. And anybody who denies that is completely insane. We have evidence that they were willing to do these things. They were there in full SWAT gear over a custody battle that could have been settled in court in a few weeks, maybe a couple of years at the most. This isn't completely about whether or not Cliven was right or wrong. And the people that think that we're out there to start a war, you're full of it. You would have to be insane to go to war with the U.S. government. There's a reason why people, and so many of them, have supported the government in wars for so long. Because they are very good at what they do. We don't want bloodshed. We don't want anybody to get hurt. But that means, if that means we have to stand out there and tell the government they're not allowed to do the same, then so be it. That doesn't make us terrorists. That makes us peace officers at the worst. But like I said, this is not whether or not Cliven Bundy was right, about, hey, this is my land, I've had it for generations. That doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter that the tortoises are out there. There was harm being done to them anyways, by the government. It's ridiculous. But the only way we're terrorists is if our freedoms are gone. And it's sad that anybody would criticize us for making a stand against that. Some of you would actually be hypocritical. Because, oh yeah, back in the day they were right with the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. But right now, we're wrong. These people are terrorists. Mr. Harry Reid, you are a complete disgrace to this country and the government. And as a person who is of the people, and as you, in your position as a servant to the people, I say you're fired. That is all, people. Thank you for listening, and look forward to more posts in the future.